Thanks very much, Olivia, and I'm delighted to be here in Galway this afternoon. Come across the country. We were voting in the Dáil earlier on. I know myself and Michael Creed were like a tag team going across the country today. But I suppose probably the single biggest challenge that we have as a society, and it's the issue across government, and probably the defining issue of our time, is the issue of climate change and that transition to a low carbon economy. And it's something that we as a government are grappling with. As you know, we announced our National Development Plan a number of weeks ago, and we're committing in that National Development Plan that between the state and state agencies, the funding that will be committed over the next decade in capital investment, €1 in €5 of that investment is going to be put into climate-related investment. And that's a significant amount of money, not just in domestic terms or in European terms, but in global terms by any government. But we cannot turn the ship around in relation to climate change on our own. And any single country can't do it on its own. We need to engage with communities and with individuals across this country and across the globe, and help each and every individual to take a positive step towards addressing the issue of climate change. My job as Minister in the department that I have, the Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment, is about utilising the natural resources we have in Ireland in a sustainable manner to drive change, to transform rural Ireland, to support employment and to protect our people and our planet for future generations. Speaking at the European Council of Energy Ministers a couple of weeks ago, I made the point that the Eurozone is now beginning to slow down as a direct result of rising oil prices, and that we need to decouple economic growth from oil availability and prices. And Europe must become as self-sufficient as possible in renewable energy, and that will break the constraining impact that fossil fuels have on our economy at present. In Ireland, we've pretty unique challenges here, but pretty unique opportunities as well. Last April, EirGrid announced that they have now gone live on a 65% loading of variable electricity onto our grid here in Ireland. No electricity grid anywhere on this planet has come anywhere near putting that amount of variable electricity onto the grid. And what's more, we intend to put a 75% loading of variable electricity, that is wind, onto an isolated electricity grid by 2020. That will be a monumental achievement, and it's been done through the DS3 programme with EirGrid and working with many players in industry. Onshore wind has been the key driver in relation to renewables to date. But the government is now determined to diversify our renewable energy mix on the move out towards meeting our 2030 targets. Solar will be part of it, but offshore renewables will be a key part of meeting our 2030 targets. And there's huge opportunities in the offshore sector, and I believe that the opportunities that are there are critical if we're going to achieve our 2030 targets and the targets beyond that that have been set for us. As you know, the targets for 2030 are across the EU is a 32% renewable energy target, which is a very challenging target. In Ireland, we set ourselves a target of 55% renewable electricity by 2030, which is going to be based on the demands that are going to be placed on electricity grid over the next decade, a substantial ramp forward in relation to the amount of electricity we produce here. In fact, we're increasing by 50% the amount of renewable energy that's going to be put onto the grid to meet that particular target. But there are challenges, as I say, in relation to that, but there are also huge opportunities. The offshore renewable energy sector can enable a generation of carbon-free renewable electricity to be available, enhance our security supply here in Ireland, deliver green growth and green jobs into our economy. As you know, Ireland has one of the best offshore renewable energy resources in the world, and it's how we untap that and realise that potential is the challenge that we all have here in this room and we have as a government. I see things developing initially from the Irish Sea, where we already have permissions in place, to the Celtic Sea, and then out to the Atlantic Ocean. And untapping those is going to be a huge opportunity for Ireland. 2 weeks ago, I was in Cherbourg in France, where we opened the first ever purpose-built offshore renewable tidal manufacturing facility. And that was constructed and opened based on Irish research and Irish researchers. The Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, funded through the Irish government, supported that particular design programme. And not only is it creating jobs in France and the deployment of tidal technology, it's supporting jobs in Greenore and County Louth, jobs in Dublin, and supporting the whole research sector here. And I think it's not to be sneezed at the amount of investment this government is putting into the whole area of offshore renewable research. We have the lab scale research facilities in Cork, quarter scale here in Galway Bay, full scale off the coast of Mayo quite soon. We supported 17 prototypes in 2016, another 16 in 2017. And we have ring-fenced 30 megawatts of capacity onto our grid, which is equivalent to the amount that is being produced in Highwind in Scotland in relation to that offshore floating wind farm there. So, and we've also got a commitment now from the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund to invest in this area. But on top of that, we've a lot of structures put in place. The mapping that has been carried out by the Geological Survey of Ireland, the Observe programme that we're doing off the west coast in terms of whales, dolphins, porpoises and bird life, provides us with the type of research that we need to know what's going on off our coast and be able to put the proper processes in place, both in terms of consent, but also in terms of protecting our environment. I think the initiative in Airwind with Equinor and the Marai Centre in Cork driving that particular project to look at the suitable areas for the development of offshore wind off our coast is a really innovative step that's being taken here at the moment. But the challenges that we have at present are legislative, they're technical, they're financial, and those three challenges need to be worked on in tandem. Yes, we're dealing with some of those technical issues and we have the research programme put in place. We are now dealing with some of those financial issues, and I will be bringing to government within the next few weeks the Renewable Electricity Support Scheme that will allow for the support of offshore renewables. But we also need to deal with the legislative structure. And I'm engaging currently with Owen Murphy, the Minister for Planning and Local Government, and I've had a number of discussions with the Attorney General to try and get the Maritime Area Foreshore Amendment Bill back on track again. And we're determined to ensure that that is enacted into law next year, to ensure that we have the proper planning consent structures put in place to make the development of our coast happen. And the reason that I'm so determined to do that is because we have approximately 50 gigawatts of energy off our coast. It's an absolutely humongous capacity that's there untapped at the moment. It not only will meet Irish needs, and we are looking at the moment, and put it in context, on a normal day, the load demand in Ireland is about 5 gigawatts, about 1/10 of what's off our coast at present. So there's huge opportunities to export that. Initially through the Celtic interconnector, and we're engaging with our French counterparts and the European Commission in relation to that. But we see with the amount of opportunity off the west coast of bringing a direct interconnector link from the Atlantic Ocean, bypassing the island of Ireland and going directly into the European grid as the best way to bring a lot of that renewable electricity directly to the markets that actually need it. And there are technical challenges there. I know that we are dealing with many of those at present, but there's also the seed capital that's needed to get something from the prototype stage right into production. And within the next few weeks, I'm going to be announcing a new climate action fund with initially €500 million put into that. We expect it will be somewhere north of that, but initially €500 million put into that. And that is a blank canvas for anyone that wants to come into Ireland or that lives here in Ireland and that wants to come forward with an initiative that can have a direct impact on reducing our carbon footprint as a country. The opportunities are endless in relation to that, and I would encourage people, when this fund is launched in the next couple of weeks, to look and explore the opportunities that are there. Can I finally say, for those of you that are from around here or from Ireland, you know that I'm the most inland TD in the country. For visitors, I'm the most inland Member of Parliament in the country, never mind the most inland Member of the Cabinet. And sometimes, you know, when you look at a mountain, it's far more awe-inspiring and clearly visible if you're looking from the valley than if you're on the mountain itself. For me, I believe the same in relation to the opportunities that we have off our coast, in the Celtic Sea, the Irish Sea, and off in our Atlantic coast in particular. There are huge opportunities there. Many of you I've worked with over the last 2 years as Minister. Many of you know my commitment to this particular sector. And I'm determined to put not just the authorisations in place, but to put a proper planning structure, development structure in place to ensure that we can tap into all of the opportunities, all of the renewable opportunities that our seas provide us off the coast of Ireland. Gora míle maith agat.
The Minister has kindly agreed to answer one or two questions. So I just wanted to ask you, and I'll let you in there because I have a microphone, but you don't. This business of the fact that in Ireland we have only, 25 megawatts of offshore wind installed, but at the same time there are applications for almost, 4,500 megawatts with the Foreshore Consent Authority, and some of them have been there for almost 10 years. What is going on?
Yeah, I suppose we have an unusual situation here in Ireland. It goes back to the establishment of the state, this idea or concept of a foreshore, where you can only give authorisations up to 12 miles off our coast. And working, as you know, we have the draft of the foreshore legislation there in place now. We're working through that. There have been technical issues that have arisen in relation to that legislation that we're now trying to overcome. And there's direct engagement between myself and the Attorney General, between my own department and Owen Murphy's department, and Michael Creed's department. You have a number of government departments involved in this. The Department of Transport, the Department of Agriculture and the Marine, the Department of Planning and Local Government, my own department, and the Attorney General's office. And as many of you know, when you have a number of different government bodies involved, it can be complex. And those legal issues are being resolved at the moment. Yeah, and that's why I said here today that I expect next year that we will be in a position to enact that new legislation.
5 years this legislation has been hanging about.
No, it's longer than 5 years.
Even longer than 5 years.
Yes, and that's why I said, and some of the people here know that this has got renewed priority within the last 100 weeks since my appointment as Minister, because I believe there is massive opportunities for us, not just in relation to the Irish Sea, but as I say, the Celtic Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. And I'm someone that has driven this particular piece of legislation on, and that's why I can say that it's our intention to have it enacted next year.
And it wouldn't be simpler just to have a piece of legislation that dealt particularly with offshore?
No, I think there's, Olivia, with due respect, there's maybe a lack of appreciation of the complexity of this. Like even if you take it in terms of the impact from Josepha Madigan's department's responsibility in relation to the protection of biodiversity, in relation to the SACs that we have now off our coast. We have put a lot of that research in place through my own department, through the Geological Survey of Ireland. So there's a huge number of complexities and strands. If you look at even the planning process...
Still and all, waiting for years and years for a consent process. But if you look at the planning process in Ireland, on land... You're creating your own barricade.
Yeah. If you look at the complexity in relation to planning on land in Ireland, and take that offshore then, where there is absolutely no structure and hasn't been a proper structure in place, that adds to the complexities in relation to it. Yes, it has not progressed as quickly as I would have liked to have seen happen. In fact, I think it was designated in 2016 as a priority piece of legislation. But I can tell you that it is a priority now. It has been prioritised over the last 100 weeks, and I'm determined to see this legislation progressed and enacted, because it helps not only to deal with our own issues in relation to reaching our 2030 targets, but also massive opportunity that we have to help our European colleagues in helping to meet their 2030 and 2040 renewable energy targets.
Okay, do you know what? I'm going to let you go now. Thank you very much.